In this video, we'll be looking at how to add a natural blur effect by using Canva AI in Affinity. So without any further ado, let's get started. So before starting, first of all, if you want the image files that we will be working on this video, then please find the image files with the link in the description. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe for more tips and tricks related to Affinity. So now without any further ado, let's get started. So first of all, I'll bring our image to work on. So for that, I'll simply navigate below and open our Finder window. And then I'll select our portrait image and drag and drop it inside of our Affinity UI. And after dropping it, you can now see that it has automatically shifted it from Vector Studio to Canva AI Studio. And when you place your image inside of your Affinity, if you are in Vector Studio or any other studio, first of all, make sure that you come to Canva AI Studio. Or if you want to apply the portrait blur using AI directly to the image, you can simply navigate up to this particular icon and you can apply it from here as well, which says portrait blur. However, I'll navigate to Canva AI Studio for now. And one thing to note here is this particular feature is only available to individuals who are a pro member subscription to Canva. So after switching to Canva AI Studio, now we can access the portrait blur effect also by simply navigating to the left of our tools in the toolbar inside Canva AI Studio and then selecting portrait blur tool. And when selecting portrait blur tool or when applying the portrait blur tool, make sure that you have selected your image. So after clicking on portrait blur tool, now AI has processed and applied the portrait blur effect to our image. So let's see the settings and different sliders that we have in our portrait blur box, which pops up right after we select portrait blur effect with the help of selecting the portrait blur tool. So now, first of all, let's see what the radius slider does. So if I increase the radius slider, you can see that all of the background as well as our image background are slightly getting much blur. So the blur amount is increasing at the background of our subject like so. And I want our image to have a light blur. So I'll simply decrease the value of the radius and set the blur somewhere at 11.5 pixels for now. And the next option that we have is focal distance. So focal distance simply determines the how much blur effect the distance from the background to the distance towards our subject. So if I change the slider for focal distance, then you can see that the edges of our portrait is becoming much more blur. If I reduce the distance and if I increase the distance, then the edges will be much more sharper. So we can simply introduce the background blur to the edges of the subject by simply dragging and changing the values of focal distance like so and allowing the blur from the background to trespass inside the boundary of the subject like so by decreasing the value a bit. So I'll set the value to 15% for now and let few of the blur to trespass inside of the subject to make it more natural. And next option we have is blur smoothness. So we can adjust the blur smoothness slider all the way to the left or all the way to the right in order to control the blurriness in our image. So I think I have to increase the radius more in order to see the effect of blur smoothness. So let me increase it for now and let me decrease the blur smoothness. As you can see that as soon as I decrease the blur smoothness, it has changed the blur in our background and made it much more less transparent. And if I increase the value of the blur smoothness, now the blurriness in the background is much more transparent. So I'll set the blur smoothness to 100% for now because we want the blurriness to be smooth. And then I'll get our radius value back to how it was before. Let's say to somewhere around 11 pixels for now. And now as I am satisfied with the blur or the portrait blur effect applied currently, I can simply go ahead and click on apply. However, before that, let's check the before and after of applying the portrait blur effect. So we can simply navigate to the left and click on split view, and now you can see the after on the left and before on the right. So you can simply click and drag this slider like so. So this was the before and now this is the after. So we can give a much more focus on the subject in the image now because of the portrait blur that exists or that has been introduced with the portrait blur effect. Similarly, we can also change the mode by clicking the next one, which is mirror view, and on the left you can see the view after applying the portrait blur, and on the right you can see the view which is before applying the portrait blur. And now after everything is done and we are satisfied with applying this effect of portrait blur, let's navigate and click on apply. And as soon as we click on apply, the portrait blur has been applied, or the portrait blur has been officially committed to our image. So this is how we can use portrait blur effect inside of an image and apply it inside Affinity, which is actually under the AI feature inside Affinity. So if you find this video helpful, please click on the like button, and to get more tips and tricks related to Affinity, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching this video and see you on the next video.